So here it is, just about 7:15 on the morning of Tabernacles, and I'm reviewing this great piece from Stephen, I can't remember, Covings, maybe, I don't know, out of the Sefer group. You can see in the background there, he's covering the law, talking about judgments, commandments, and statutes. Pretty interesting. If I have a commercial pop up on here, it's because there's a virus on my phone, so just ignore it. So right here, this is just a bit interesting to me anyway. The law, commands, judgments, statutes. In the background here, we have Bella, my dog, snoring. That's just for you. In Congress on July 4, 1776, I-776, or so they say, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. Yeah. We're in the course. Why did they capitalize that? I don't know. And this character right here is interesting to me. What is that right there? What is that? Human? I mean, obviously, based on this right down here, they know what a man is and acknowledge what mankind is. But up here at the top, we just got this great big C over here for no reason. And we've got a alteration of man. I don't know what alteration specifically was made there, but it's not man, it's human. That's something funny. Anyway, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people. Well, there you go. That is a human, a animated dead man, because peoples belongs to persons and persons are dead. And we got some, I mean, the only thing, if you're going to alter a man, it's going to be an abomination. So we're talking about an abominable group who don't write properly. There's that ad I was talking about. Excuse me. There we go. We're talking about persons. We're talking about abominations. We're talking about documents. Anyway, whenever it becomes necessary for one abomination to dissolve its political bands to which it's connected with another, what were they doing that in the first place? Anyways, let's get on with this. Let's just start right here. Assume among the powers of the earth. Definition, please. I mean, I know you think that sounds as simple as powers of the earth, but none of this is like that. The separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's Elohim entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the courses which impel them to the separation. I'm going to just say, yes, I agree in full with that last part right there. I don't know about this stuff with the abominations and what they're doing up there, and I'm not assuming much of anything. And I don't know what the powers of the earth are specifically. I don't even know if it's a separate station from what to what exactly is that. If it's an equal station anyway. What's the point? I mean, this whole thing is just a contradiction of a traduction. Traducing? Is that what they call them things? Anyways, starting about right here, I guess. The laws of nature and of nature's Elohim, entitle them. Well, nature declares the glory of God, of Yahuwah. That's kind of good. It forces me to clear my screen. I don't need this anymore. Just interesting little thoughts. I mean, these things are important. If you're a law professor or you practiced in law as a student of law, then if we're going to gather in truth, why don't we speak in truth? Why are we leading people to continue? You come out of the beast and you bring its profit with you tucked in your pocket. What's the point? You might as well just go back into the church. If you're going to carry Paul with you, there's just no point in leaving. Especially if you're going to do it on a spinning ball. But setting that aside, talk about unbelievers. There's just not any way in the world that if you don't have command of your five senses and some basic cognitive intelligence and ability to perceive your surroundings, then you have the word. You've got your good book there. You've got the good news. You've got the Torah. You've got the Tanakh. You've got the Gospels. You've got all of the letters of Paul. And then you got a couple pages there in the back from the apostles, followed by the guidebook to the New World Order in conclusion there, the Revelation of some man named John. They know it ain't the same John that wrote the Gospel of John. The writing tells that. That's something that is evident in the writing. It's not the same man that wrote the two books. And so when you understand that, and there's just so many things about it that scream, you're supposed to know I'm a fraud, that it's obscene. I mean, we can just start out with the fact that prophecy was sealed with John the Baptist, and Amos 3:7. I mean, if anything's going to happen, it's going to come through the prophets. It's not going to make any sudden movements and not let us know about it. And it ain't going to be no new prophecy you find today. It will have already occurred. And nobody said that of the prophets, which They were a collective. They were all spoken of as a collective throughout the Old Testament, and they were called the prophets. Like that. Yet, after, he's not a prophet, he's the Son of God. That's why prophecy was sealed with John the Baptist. What need would there be for some dude we don't even know what house he come from? It's just a guy named John wrote a revelation, which is not a revelation, it's a compilation of other revelation. And if you can't see that, then you're not even looking. The reason that I don't ignore the book of Revelation is because understanding the truth of it, I went through it and started pulling out what came from the prophets and what didn't, looking for the deception, and it's near impossible to find any aspect of the book that doesn't come out of the Old Testament somewhere. I mean, there's bits and pieces, but they're not significant chunks as far as I was able to discern. So, is it inspired? Well, yeah, it's written throughout the Old Testament, but what we don't understand is which one of those prophecies may have been fulfilled in another manner and we're not thinking of, that aren't even here on the table today yet, but because maybe it was a mystery school magician named Cerinthius, as spoken of by the Catholics on page 377 of some book I can't remember the name of in the Catholic library, that can be pulled up on the internet, for crying out loud, that maybe that's why it sounds so mysterious, because that's a mysterious mystery of a book. And one thing that we know is that Yahuwah is not what? The author of confusion. Okay, come on now. I was a man, but don't know if I was a man. That was a thing that was ushered up into the heavens, and the rhetorical circle jerk of a nature that I speak could go on literally for hours, that I could continue to move my lips, and as the words flew out of my mouth and into your ears, there would be nothing really spoken of at all, even though I could go on and not say anything for as long as it took to convince you that you were under my spell and that you really understood me. That means to stand under my authority, because you're hypnotized in nonsense. That's what it is to be a rhetorical artist. Now, I'm not a rhetorical artist. I didn't just spin you into hypnotism or anything like that. I was just like kind of trying to provide a demonstration as to, how that goes, how that works. Because I am not going to, like I wouldn't get up on stage and try to, sing like some famous, skilled, beautiful singer, because I can't sing. And so I'm not going to try to be Paul Spall. I can't, I ain't got all that. That guy's got a gift. And I don't have it. So I'm not going to try to go there like all that, because I'm a simple man. And I don't have theological education and stuff like that. But I do have the ability to read. And it's right there at the very start of Acts. I mean, essentially, it's at the beginning of the part after Messiah has left the scenes. Now, keep in mind, please, that at the very earliest first part of Acts, we've got 11 apostles. Jude's gone. 11 is an inappropriate number of apostles because there's to be 12. And there's requirements to be an apostle, not just anyone's eligible. And at the time, whenever they get together to figure all this out, they learn that, well, don't learn anything, they know. I'll try to get rid of this. Excuse that, sorry. This is totally blowing my concentration. They know some things. Y'all need to go look at this on YouTube. It's a good study. Even if I don't agree with everything that they discuss here, that doesn't mean that a lot of it, or 99.9% of it, isn't urgent for you to know. Depends on where and who you are, I suppose. But see, the thing is they knew that at the time where they were, there was only 2 men who were eligible to be put into the hat, if you will, to select another apostle to replace Judas. And there was only 2 guys, and none of them was named Paul. And Matthias was selected. It's the 12th apostle. So if you got 12 pillars, and when I say pillars, I don't think any of us understand what they actually mean by that in scriptures. But anyway, pillars to hold up the thrones, 12 of them, 12 pillars, 12 thrones, 12 tribes, 12 apostles. I don't know how this all works, but I'm pretty sure that the reason that the other guy that didn't get selected didn't say, come on, man, let me in too, is because he understood that who would want to be the 13th apostle? Ain't but 12 thrones. You'd be ruling from the floor, I suppose, if they let you in the door. What I'm trying to get at is it's not possible for Paul to be an apostle. He did have the opportunity, however, which is even all the more interesting to know, that the man whose mama was the wealthiest woman in Rome, and through his father's side was a Herodian, had met Yeshua walking and was talking and asked what was required that he could follow me, as they say, as Yeshua said. And he said, hey, it's simple, man. Just go sell your stuff, give the money to the poor, and let's go. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, my goodness. You see, I can't do that. I'm a very wealthy man, said Saul. So the one requirement of being there from the beginning to the end, from the baptism to the ascension, that is the requirement for someone to become an apostle, is to first be a disciple, like being a master electrician without ever having been an apprentice. Paul clearly doesn't meet. He had a flash, a vision, a kundalini. I mean, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. It wasn't authentic. And the reason I know that is because by 2 or 3 witnesses, the truth shall be known. And right there in the first part of Acts, Paul confesses himself to be a liar by the word of his own 2 or 3 witnesses that all give completely different, contradictory accounts of the revelation, the vision, the hallucination. I don't know what you call it. I've never had one of those. The man was a mystery school magician. It's the reason that he too, through the power of Hasatan, could work signs and wonders, and heal people and do these things. It was like in, I think, Matthew 22 maybe. I can't remember exactly. I don't have my Bible opened at the moment. It's right here next to me, but I don't need to open it to tell you, because you already know that Yeshua told his apostles not to go to the Gentile nations, or to go to the way of the Samaritans, not to do it, that they were to go for the lost sheep of the tribes of Israel. So if some dude wants to come in and proclaim himself the 13th apostle and not have any letters to see that that's true from the actual leader of the actual apostles who actually lived with the Messiah of mankind from childhood, all the days of his life, practically, I suppose, until his own death, which nearly happened at the hand of Paul at the temple when he threw him off the steps and left him for dead. That's why he's always having to argue with the churches, the church fathers at these other churches. One thing, they know there's only 12 apostles. We could start with that. But even if they weren't that smart, they were already aware. They had been instructed through James that should anyone show up without any papers to authenticate themselves as not being a wolf in sheep's clothing, that they were not to be accepted. Paul never had any papers. You know, it goes around, and which among the other apostles, if you even know their names, mocks the other apostles? None. When does it speak of Yeshua being a jokester and a crankster and laughing and playing games? Never. So why we got Paul mocking the actual apostles for not consuming dead flesh, for not touching dead things, for not eating or drinking blood, for not slaughtering and murdering sentient creation of God that you have no right to touch, much less shed the blood of. Life is in the blood. If it's got red blood, life is in the blood. You can't create it. That means you can't replace it, and it ain't for sale, so you can't buy it. Therefore, you can't spill it. Don't touch it. That one sin alone, that bloodshed, what the havoc that is wreaked in mankind. You know that we are all a bunch of walking, talking parasites. Our actions, our thoughts, our attitudes are controlled literally by parasites that are consuming us from the inside out as a result of us going and consuming some animal from the outside in with no authority or permission to do so. And it doesn't matter that you didn't slit its throat. You still shared in it. And so did I. Until the very first time that it was put to me that it was sinful and I got it. That's when I know that I'm on. It's like a bell rings in my head when truth presents itself, and there's nothing ambiguous about it. It's clear as day. When you've been in mud and you find truth, you know it. You can see it. It makes sense. as an adult, if another, doesn't matter who, when into your ears you hear the concept, if someone were to say that the physics of fluids dictate that liquids like water always find level, and that they always have, and that there's nothing that should lead us to believe that they're not always going to continue to do the same, because that is the physical nature of their properties of fluids, to find level. Well, I mean, you know right off the bat that water forms to the shape of its container, the inside shape of its container, not the outside shape, the inverse law of water forming to the outside shape of its, what people? Yes, there's a sphere involved in this. It's true. Just we're on the inside of it, not the outside. On the inside, if you fill it halfway up with water, that water is going to find level. You could see it all the way across level. See level? See the level? Horizontal line in the sky. Did you know that gyroscopes don't have any electric components to them, and they only operate over a flat plane? Gyroscopes don't work over spheres. Every airplane in the air is functioning on a gyroscope that works only over a flat plane. Flat stationary plane as far as that goes. What kind of 18-year-old kid that goes to sniper school is going to really be able to calculate in their head? I want you to think about this. Think about your son's math grades. Now let's start talking about pulling the shot. First off, I can tell you right now, you can't go to Google and say, how fast am I spinning at my current location? If the Earth is spinning at 1,040 miles an hour at the equator, then, at the Tropic of Cancer, it's spinning at a slower speed than that. The further away from the outside center you go of the spinning sphere, the slower the speed would be until you get up. If you were to stand on the tippy top of Mount Meru at the North Pole there, well, you really wouldn't be, wouldn't be very fast at all, would it? Certainly wouldn't be 1,040 miles an hour. And Google can't tell you how fast you're spinning in Tampa versus Dallas. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's keep numbers simple. And let's say 500 miles an hour. Maybe if you're in somewhere in Canada or something, I don't know. Okay, now let's say we're on an airplane and we're coming on a north-south runway. Doesn't matter whether you're going to land north or south, because the world is spinning clockwise. I think. The sun is spinning clockwise, whatever. See, I don't even think about that stuff because it's utter nonsense. Anyway, let's just pretend that you got the runway spinning vertical to your position at 90 degrees at 500 miles an hour, and you're in a jet that's been flying 500 miles an hour, and you're going to slow down before you land, of course. Let's say you're going 100 miles an hour. I don't really know what jets land at, but let's say it's 100 miles an hour when the rubber hits the tarmac, or the road, as they say. I would like an engineering student to tell me at what degree is the plane going to first flip as it starts to spin many, many times with the with the wings busting off and all the people splatting up against the, well, I guess if they got their seatbelts on, maybe they won't splat, but yeah, they will, because when it all comes apart and the seats are smashing into the dirt and, all that. Now, fortunately, much to people's chagrin, there wouldn't really be much of an explosion because ain't no jet fuel up in them jets. I mean, I'm not saying ain't no oxygen in there. I'm just saying that they use air to fly over a plane. That's what a jet does. It uses compressed air. They don't have, tons of jet fuel packed into the wings of those planes. They wouldn't even fit to start with. And if they did, it'd be such a disaster to try to fly. It would be absurd. So, anyway, there's that. What I want to know then is, if you can't just tell me straight off the top of your head how many times, if it was going 100 and the world was spinning 500 and it lands perpendicular to the spin, the plane is going to flip before it stops, and at what angle off of 12 o'clock noon on a clock there, is it going to go to the 2 o'clock position? Will it go flat, 3 o'clock? How's that? What direction? I'm trying to put it together in my mind. If you can't tell me that, then what makes you think that a teenager, when shooting a gun, is going to be able to say, I'm at this point on the spinning sphere that's spinning at this speed, and I'm going to shoot around a curve and hit a target that's not where my bullet is yet, but eventually it'll be there. Like a Tom Brady pass or something, right? He throws it to one part of the field and that receiver's on the other. By the time it lands, he's right there. This is how these guys are shooting. And they're putting this math together in their head that fast. They ain't got no special computer or nothing. Nonsense. That in the Navy that they can see targets 100 miles away with the optics that they have, and they can put a dot on another craft or whatever a long, long, long way away. So far away that if that craft were on a sphere, it'd be miles and miles below the horizon. And so I'll tell you one thing's for sure: the earth is absolutely not flat. That's absurd. And the reason we know that is because of all the many differing degrees of sea level that's platted on every stitch of land that we're allowed to know about in this world. I'm about right now 700 feet above sea level where I'm at this minute. I know that. That's because the sea's level. And where I came from before, I was about 600 feet, and where I was at before that was about 450 feet above sea level. So you see, obviously the earth isn't flat, or there wouldn't be differences. It would just be one level. So stop talking about the flat earth, you morons. It's the water that surrounds the land upon which we stand that's level, not the ground. The ground has hills and valleys and all kinds of differing degrees of level. I mean, come on, wake up. Stop talking about your flat earth, dummies. Come on now. I mean, at least you got a clue, and it's just a very simple term. It's because our language has been mixed up, and it's been mixed up in thousands of ways. So I'm not actually slamming people who know that they don't live on Goofy. I mean, a spinning sphere of mostly water next to the Mars bar and the Milky Way bar galaxy. You got Pluto down there at the end of the planes with the T, X cross. X marks the spot of Satan. He put his tail on our plane. Kind of like NASA, which means to deceive. Translates to deceive, NASA. And in their logo, they got the split tongue of the serpent coming down, forming the T, giving you all the letters for the word Satan. And you can't put together that Apollo is the son of Satan and the Apollo missions. And you still can't put it together that if you were on a spinning sphere of mostly water, rotating around the sun, putting the sun in the center of all things, that it wouldn't be possible for the sky clock to work, that there would be no such thing as astronomy or astrology, because not only are you supposedly going around this great big giant sun where you'd never see the same stars anyway, and when you got to the other side of it, there'd be a 12-hour difference of time as to where night and day was. Not only is that true, but you're also moving across the Milky Way bar galaxy at the same time at 500,000 miles an hour, which is being drug across the entire universe with all the other Milky Way bar galaxies at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Yeah, growing up on lakes in the summertime and Dad retiring on one, my favorite thing to do is to go out early in the morning to the docks and just sit there and smell. Oh, it smells so good. And to see that little smoke on the water and the silence. And that water is just as still as glass and beautiful. A little perch will come and nip the top of the water and the ripple. That's because the land upon which you stand is fixed upon foundations that are not moving, just like it says in the scriptures. This world does not hang on something. It's not floating in space. It's fixed firm on foundations. The waters were separated from the waters. A firmament was established to maintain this separation. It's a crystalline, clear, about 3 fingers thick firmament, and above it is the waters of the great deep, the heavenly waters. They're blue. That's why the sky's blue. Until they mark it up with chemicals all day long, and eventually it's just a white haze. As they're blocking out our sun. It's probably a representation allegorically of blocking out the true light of the world, which is Yeshua, the Son of Man, the Son of God, the light of the world. But it's not that little thing up in the sky. You can know that's a fact. That's called heating and ventilation, air conditioning, people's the sun and moon. The moon doesn't even put out the same kind of light as the sun. And so therefore it's impossible that you could reflect hot light from a sun off of a moon, and then it would reflect its, reflection into the earth and be cold. Because the moon puts out cold light. which is easy to see, and anyone can get a little laser thermometer and go out when there's a decent amount of moonlight out, like now if you want. Last night it was full. It was the smallest full moon of the year. It's very beautiful and interesting to look at. And go to a shadow where there's a clear delineated shadow in the moonlight and check the temperature differences. The shadow, the shaded part, is going to be warmer in the shade of the moon than the part of the ground that's lit by the moonlight, receiving a cold light. It would not be possible if you're reflecting a hot light to make it cold. The moon is its own source of light, and it's 7 times less that of the sun. But they're both the same size. I mean, come on, really? It just so happens that the sun is 400 times further away from Earth than the moon, and the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, and that's why we got special relativity. They made that they put that together for the special children on the special bus is what special relativity is. That's nonsense, people. Einstein's mocking you even with his name. Ain't got nothing to do with the Stein part of it. He's mocking you with those silly women's shoes he's wearing in that stupid picture that sellout hippie made. When asked what it's like to be the smartest man in the world, he replied, "I don't know. You would have to ask Nikola Tesla." Nikola Tesla said that Einstein was a blithering idiot. And after 500 years, the reason his idea is still what you call a theory is because it's not provable by anybody, much less reproducible or even explainable. Yet my family hates me because I refuse to pretend to be stupid. And even in that hate that they have for me and all that's come of it, I only love them because they're my family. And there's no other way to be towards your family. And even in my arguments with my father, which I so much deeply wish just didn't have to happen, I love him. I always will love him. And I don't intend or wish to disrespect my father, but only to bring him to the awareness of what's going on and the deception of it so that he can see truth and do the right thing. Because when he knows what the right thing is, I firmly believe that he would do it. Right now, he's under the same stupid spell that all the rest of the people are. So I'm not going to pick him out and pick my own dad to, bear a lot of hate for. If you see me post anything that has his name on it, it's because I'm reaching out to him specifically after every other avenue, save one that's coming next, which is what I should have done in the first place if I had had any sense or a better understanding of Scripture or had been the kind of man that I thought I was all this time. See, I learned that I wasn't that guy and that the world around me wasn't the way I thought, and that all the answers to these issues were things that we knew when we were children. And the more complicated matters, we didn't get through high school without being taught. if you're over 40 years old, you know good and well that there was a time in your life where you stood up in a classroom, put your hand in front of your heart there, and said the Pledge of Allegiance and pledged allegiance to a flag, which already you shouldn't be doing. That's dumb. But if you're going to, the flag that you done pledged allegiance to, at least it was a republic and not a demon crazy. Yet today, people don't even know that they live in a republic. They will fight you over that issue. If you try to tell them it's a republic and that you're sovereign, they'll fight with you over it. Yeah, a short time ago, everybody knew this. I mean, I have an Airstream that says sovereign right on the side of it because back in the 70s when that thing was made, people knew what sovereign meant and they knew that that's what they were under their creator. And they're duty bound to his laws. And that if they do something that some other person believes that they were wronged in, that since that law is not exactly specifically written down so, in every regard of all situations, that what we do is get a group of our peers to help parse this out. Yeah. Well, that ain't how it works no more. If somebody does me wrong, I can't even make my claim and prosecute under the law according to the way that I'm supposed to be able to in the world. I have to get somebody else. I have to go enter into an agreement with Baal and let Baal take my claim and seek my justice through him. I have to go to Moloch, Ishtar, Isis, Columbia. I mean, the names go on and on and on. Apollyon is the son of the devil, so to speak, of Satan. The moon landing, the Apollo, space was made in a Hollywood basement, boys and girls, and that's a fact. There's a mud floater bet. And if you don't know what that is, go YouTube, Google it, and watch a video from, say, John Levy, JONLEVI, or UAP. If you really want to know what's going on, you go to Flat Earth British, but I'm not going to tell you to do that because that's too much for you. If you don't know these other things yet, I would just steer clear of there. Yeah, John Levy would be the best place for a person to start. Simple, elegant, easy to listen to, no nonsense. A child could follow. But talking about the law,
we're going to claim the justice.
Pigeon is his name. I'm sorry. Covey is, he wrote that book, 7 Habits. So anyway, Dr. Stephen Pigeon, I don't know what to think of the fellow. I think that his heart's true. I don't know. The one thing I know is it's not for me to judge. If his heart's true, he's obviously still under the spell of Paul. I don't know about the ball thing, probably so. But I do know that before he wrote the Sefer, which is the scriptures, how they were as close as we can determine and intended to be. Not that those specific books were ever mandated by Yahuwah that those would go together and put them in one bounding and call it the Bible, but whatever. But if I had $100, I would certainly buy it, because you have the proper names of the creator, who absolutely does not want his name to be hidden. It speaks to this in scriptures throughout. He wants his name to be glorified in this world. And it's beautiful to do so. It's not a slave thing. When you truly understand what love is and what's been laid down before us, is incredible. You can't not acknowledge that. I mean, you can, but I can't. It's not in my heart to do so. But like I said, straight out the gate, at the top of the most well-known sermon in the history of mankind, the Sermon on the Mount, or Matthew 5-7, after the hellos and whatnot, it's the first part of the sermon begins with, "Do not be deceived. To follow me will be many deceivers. Many will come in my name, and they will deceive you. There will be liars everywhere. Watch out for them slippery tongue bastards, because they're going to come." You were told right from the beginning. And so the idea that your government has a bunch of criminals pretending to be government, not actual government, would lie to you, to think that that is impossible, is just utterly ludicrous. Everybody knows that they lie. If you want to know the truth, you have to go to the movies. And if you want to be entertained, you just only need to turn on the news, because it's the reversal. It's the upside down. Everything Satan does, he takes what the Creator made and he reverses it and then flips it upside down. That's the way it works. One of the beautiful things about the way it works is these evil creatures are required to tell you the truth and to disclose to you the truth, in order that they don't bear the burden of your sin, and that the more they mock you with the truth, the greater the power of the spell that you're under. The more obvious they make it that we will believe any idiotic thing we're told, and the more we lap it up, the stronger that magic spell. All of the court system of this world, all the court system of America, every last sitting judge in this country, it's all a sham. None of them have authentic oaths of office. None of them have their documentation to be an agent of a foreign government operating on our soil with impunity, just breaking the laws left, right, and center, every which way from Sunday, with false contracts, with lies, with nonsense. It's all old Babylonian black magic, blood magic, sex magic. It's all black magic. I'm not religious, but but two religions in this world, if you want to call religions, kind of, because that's how we associate things. There's only two schools. There's only 2 camps. So, for those who want to say that that's the dichotomy, the whole black and white thing, and I bought into it, well, that's fine. Call me an idiot. There's this side of the chasm and that side of the chasm. Depending on which side that one would be on, it's always going to be that way on the other side of this flesh. And it's a chasm in between them. That's 2 camps. You can't be in both. You can't say, well, because I said so, it's this way. You can't authorize your own reality. And it's not the way it works. In a manner of speaking, that is the way it works, but not. And to do it in the way that some do is not authentic. It's self-serving. It has nothing to do with our purpose for being here, and it's not of our Creator. For we're here to serve Him, not ourselves. And so if we're concerned about creating our own future, then we're not concerned about monitoring and being ready to respond to the future that's already been laid out before us before we got here in the first place for the reasons that we agreed to come. And that's what the enemy's here for, is to distract us from our business. In this world, when we open our eyes, it would be as if we showed up to work and checked in. And when we close them, we're done for the day. We go home. And it's our job, so long as we continue to be here, to wake up into this reality, this presence of mind, so to speak, consciousness, that we have a responsibility and a duty to something, that's for sure. And we get to ultimately make that choice ourselves. That's the beauty of it all. Beauties and curses. The left hand knows what the right hand's doing. I don't know what I don't know because I wasn't there probably, so I shouldn't testify to it. But even one of those judges who's taking the money, whose hand is on Moloch's money, who's marked, even they have the choice to turn around. Well, it's not too late. On this side of the flesh. And even if they be the least in the kingdom of heaven, they would be greater than John the Baptist. Even the least. Now, I don't know what that means, because I'm certainly not greater than John the Baptist. I won't even say that I belong in the same stadium or town as John the Baptist. But there lies the point. So anyway, this is the week. This is a holy appointed day. Today is a special day of convocation that's set apart for Moedim, for man to be with the Creator. There's an appointment for every man, woman, and child this day to spend time with their Maker. This is written into the fabric of this world, this commandment. There's not any holidays in the kingdom of heaven, and there's not any Gentiles neither. A Gentile is an unbeliever. How are you going to be with the Creator if you don't believe there is one? It's not possible. Now, is it possible for someone who was a Gentile at one point to become aware of information they didn't once know and then change their ways and begin to walk as under the commandments of Yahuwah as the children of Israel did when they weren't whoring after the other gods, that then you would no longer be a Gentile. You would be a child of Israel by adoption, by your desire to follow in the ways of the one who made you. So no, there's not a gate that says Gentiles. What tribe do you belong? I don't know. I wasn't there. But there's not going to be a gate that says Babylonians either, or Romans. That's what we are here today. We're all the Romans. We're operating under Roman law. Speaking a language that they tell us is dead, Latin. Well, we actually speak dog Latin. Some people speak Latin or write Latin, however you want to call it. It's the devil's language either way. And out of it spawn English, the language of the witches. English itself is witchcraft. We're spelling out curses all day long, blessings and curses, even the blessings curses, because we're blessing one another instead of lifting one another up like we should be. Have you ever asked yourself why you follow motor vehicle codes when it's likely that you've never even driven a car that had a motor in it? Engines use gas. Motors use electricity. That's the way that the devil works. With your permission, by accepting the lie, by going along with the others, by joining the club. If you go to a building that is leased through a 501c3 corporation, then you will see that in the spelling of the corporate name that you'll find all caps, which means it's a dead entity. And further, the reason they do that is so that people can get a rebate from the devil of some of the money that they supposedly gave to God, and they want their rebate or they're not going to do it. You know, if you're not a 501c3, we're not going to give you our money because we want our rebate on our donation to God. It's just dumb. Further, why is it that all you people who believe that when it was said that these things are to be throughout all time until the heavens and earth cease to exist, that all changed when Paul said that we could nail the laws of earth, of our Creator, to the cross that Yeshua certainly was not crucified on, because it wouldn't have been a cross, because that would have been fashioned by the hand of man. And you don't build altars that way. It would have been a tree. If it was of Yahweh. We have to pay attention to biblical principles. It tells you straight up, if you have ears to hear it, that there is wheat mixed in with the tares. Of course, that's talking about people, but also it's talking about the scriptures. You're supposed to be able to discern the difference, because not everything that the Romans put together in one book and called it the Bible is the totality of God's word of his, what men know of through their own experience in walking in the ways of the Creator, are many innumerable books that testify to the glory of the Creator. And it's up to you to figure that out. It's up to you to not be such a coward that you don't even have the gusto in you to put your own faith to the test. Yet you talk about dying for it, and you're not willing to test it for fear that you might find out that what you think isn't right, and that scares you so badly that you shouldn't even dare dream of it. Plus, your pastor said, don't you dare go reading that book or listen and learn about that thing, because, boy, that's the devil right there. He'll sneak up in there and snatch your kids and kill you. You know, it's just, that's, if you know about that, then you can't know that. I mean, as soon as somebody tells me I can't know something, I'm thinking they're lying, because we're supposed to be wise as serpents and meek as doves. And that doesn't mean be a cowardly little punk either. The wise as serpent part, that means that you should know things. Everything that you can find out in this world without having to take an oath, you should know. That's the law. The law is axioms. And axioms are not something that men put together. I mean, we observe them and take note of them, but are not responsible for them, because we can't be, because whether we like it or dislike it, agree with it or opposed to it, no matter what action that we might take or force of army we might bring against, we cannot overcome axioms, because they are self-evident truth that can't be undone, and they hold true throughout all time, similar to the nature of the physics of fluids. That's how come they was building temples and towers of power with water levels back in the days of Nimrod, because they weren't numbskulls.